My name is Luminara Vale. One day, something my dad said made me feel like everything I thought I knew about my family had changed. I had asked a simple question about a summer vacation I had spent $36,000 on. I thought this trip would finally bring my family back together after years of me trying to hold everything together. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from and what time of day is it. My dad didn't hesitate. He didn't blink. He just said it, almost like he thought it was funny how much it hurt me. He said, "We already went last week. Only for family." I froze. I could still hear those words in my head long after the call ended. Only for family. It felt like I had never really belonged. The money I spent, the plans I made, the hope I had, it didn't matter. Someone had made sure my name was never on the trip at all. The vacation I paid for became the trip they used to leave me out. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I just stayed quiet, because sometimes silence can tell you the truth faster than asking questions ever could. The truth was simple. I wasn't invited to the trip I paid for. That meant something in my family had already been broken long before that call. 2 months later, another request came. It was about rent, needing help again, the same pattern repeating like clockwork. Something in me finally changed. The words my dad once used to leave me out, "only for family," became the only words I had left to say back. I said it calmly, almost gently, even though what came next was not gentle at all. Long before that moment, my life in Austin was all about numbers. After my divorce, I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city. I worked as a financial analyst at a medium-sized tech company. My days were full of spreadsheets and forecasts. On paper, my life looked stable. I had a steady paycheck, health insurance, and a desk with my name on it. But in real life, every day was the same: work, gym, microwave dinners, and falling asleep watching whatever was on TV. My parents lived several hours away in a town that had seen better days. My dad, Kailerin Vale, used to work in maintenance at a warehouse. A back injury had made him stop working full-time. My mom, Leora Vale, had part-time jobs that never lasted long enough to save money or feel secure. My younger brother, Zevian Vale, went to different community college classes, but never finished anything. At first, helping my family felt natural. When my dad's truck needed new brakes, I paid for it over the phone. When the power company said they would shut off electricity, I covered the bill late at night. Zevian fell behind on rent, once, then twice, and I sent him money without thinking much. I told myself this is what you do when you are the one who made it out, the one with a steady income. The requests never came all at once. They came slowly, like tiny drops of water that eventually filled a glass. $100 here, $300 there. Always for something urgent: rent, car insurance, medical bills that could not wait. Every time my phone buzzed with a message from home, my chest felt tight before I even opened it. To make sense of it, I did what I knew best. I opened a new workbook on my computer and made a tab called Family Support. I wrote down every transfer, every bill I paid for them, the dates, and the reasons. When I saw the totals at the bottom start to grow, I told myself that seeing the numbers meant I was in control. I made small adjustments so it wouldn't look different to anyone else. I canceled my weekly therapy sessions because the company felt like too much when my dad said he had to choose between groceries and gas. I brought leftovers to work instead of buying lunch, so I could have money for whatever emergency came next. The strangest part was how our conversations changed. Calls that used to include stories about their days turned into quick check-ins about money. "How are you?" became just a throat clearing before another request. I tried not to notice when thank you messages got shorter, then disappeared, replaced by silence once the money arrived. I told myself it was temporary. Once Zevian finished school, once Dad's situation got better, once Mom found a more steady job, things would be okay. The spreadsheet said one thing, my heart said another, and I chose the version that hurt less. Working in finance, I spent my days looking at risk for other people, spotting bad investments and suggesting ways to avoid losses. But with my family, I treated every warning sign as proof that I needed to give more, stay longer, and hold tighter. Stepping back felt like betrayal. After a while, a new thought started to grow. Small at first, then louder each time I looked at the total in my family support tab. Maybe the problem wasn't that I gave too much, but that all we talked about was what I could give. One late night, with my laptop open and my bank app glowing on my phone, a different kind of plan formed. If money had become the only way we talked, I decided I would use it to try to bring us back together. That was when the idea of paying for a big trip first came to me. Not for fun, but as a last try to fix everything that had quietly broken. I wanted something big enough to shake us out of the pattern we were stuck in. Something that might remind everyone what it felt like to be on the same side. A trip came to mind almost immediately. Not because I wanted a vacation, but because I hoped changing the place might help us reset what had slowly fallen apart. I planned it carefully like I did my work. I made tabs for flights, resorts, and rental cars. I compared options like I compared financial models. Beach towns on the East Coast, lake cabins in the Midwest, even a few mountain retreats out west, all went on a spreadsheet called Possible Destinations. I added notes about weather, travel time, and how much each would cost. When I looked at the list, one option stood out. A coastal trip with warm water, decent restaurants, and a quiet beach. It felt safe and neutral for everyone. Once I decided, I booked flights first, picking times that didn't mean anyone had to wake up too early. Then I reserved a suite big enough for all of us, a rental car, and tickets for calm group activities. The total went up fast, more money than I usually allowed myself to spend without checking twice. But I kept going, telling myself the experience would be worth it, that this time it would bring something back. When I pressed confirm, the total was $36,000, a number that would have scared me if the purpose wasn't family. After booking, I sent the itinerary and confirmation numbers in a long message. A small part of me hoped for excitement, or at least a thank you. Instead, my phone buzzed once with a short reply from my dad. Got it. No questions, no comment about the effort or money. Just those 2 words. I stared at the message, trying to find a tone in the words, but there was none. Still, I kept planning. I printed the itinerary and put it in a folder. I imagined walking on the beach, sitting at dinners without talking about bills or stressful jobs. I let myself picture a simple version of my family again, even though I probably should have known better. As the trip got closer, the silence from home grew heavier. No questions about packing or schedules, no mentions of what they wanted to do. I thought they trusted me to handle everything. I didn't think they might have already decided something else without me. In the morning I wanted to check travel plans, but everything changed. My dad's voice was casual when he said they had already gone the week before. Only for family, he added. The words hit me like a weight. I thought maybe I misheard him. The idea that they would go on the trip without me felt too strange to believe. But he spoke clearly. He wasn't joking or correcting himself. He meant exactly what he said. When the call ended, I opened my email and checked the booking portal. My stomach tightened. The names listed were theirs. Mine was not there. The dates had been changed, the guest information edited. The trip I had paid for became a trip I was not invited to. I scrolled through the updated itinerary, each line a reminder of how easily trust can be broken. It wasn't the money that hurt the most. It was realizing that all the effort I put into fixing things didn't matter long before I booked the trip. Standing in my apartment with the itinerary on my screen, I felt the truth settle quietly, leaving no room for denial. I thought about every single time I had helped my family, every time I gave money, every time I paid a bill, every time I let my own needs wait. I remembered my dinners alone in the kitchen, my quiet nights without therapy, my lunches made from leftovers. I realized that all of it had been invisible to them. All of it had been expected. And suddenly, the idea that I had done all this for love felt empty. After the shock wore off, I went back to work. I did my routine like a robot: office, gym, microwave dinners, sleep. But inside, everything felt different. I could not forget the way my father's words were cut. Only for family. Those words were now mine too, and they felt heavier than any spreadsheet or bill I had ever handled. I began to notice more clearly how my family treated me. The quiet asks for money, the disappearing thank yous, the way they never asked about my life, my feelings, or my days. I realized that the love I gave had always been measured in numbers. That love, no matter how big, had been invisible. The more I thought about it, the more I understood that trying to fix my family with money had never been the right solution. I had believed that if I spent enough, planned enough, calculated enough, we could all be happy together again. But money could not make them see me, could not make them care about me. And the trip, the $36,000 trip, had been the last proof of that truth. I felt sadness, anger, and emptiness all at the same time. But underneath all of it, something else started to grow. I realized that maybe I didn't have to keep giving until I disappeared. Maybe I didn't have to be the only one trying to hold everything together. And maybe, just maybe, I could start thinking about myself for the first time in a very long time. I knew it would not be easy. The habit of giving, of sacrificing for my family, had been with me for years. But I also knew that continuing to pour myself into a family that would not see me was not love. It was pain. I decided that the next time they asked for help, I would stop and think first. Not react immediately. Not let my heart and wallet lead the way without my mind. I began to make a plan for myself. I opened a new tab in my life, one called Luminera. I started to write down what I wanted. Small things at first. A better bed, new books, therapy sessions I could afford. Little by little, I started putting myself back on the spreadsheet of life, a place I had removed myself from long ago. Even though the pain of that trip would always be with me, I realized I could still move forward. I could still have a life where I mattered, where my needs were important, where my heart and mind came before numbers that others expected me to cover. And slowly, I began to understand that true family, real family, was not only about blood. It was about respect, love, and seeing each other. Things I had been denied for a long time. In the quiet of my apartment, I finally let myself feel the sadness. I let myself cry for the family I had tried so hard to save. I let myself be angry that the money, the effort, the hope meant nothing to them. And then, I let myself imagine a future where I did not have to beg for belonging. A future where I could care for myself the way I had tried to care for them. I knew that the road ahead would not be easy. I knew that some days would feel lonely. But I also knew that I had learned something very important. Love that is one-sided, no matter how much you give, can never fix those who do not want to see it. And the $36,000 trip, the trip they used to leave me out, became the final lesson I needed. And so I began again. Not for them. Not for the family that ignored me. But for me. My body kept moving through my usual schedule, while my mind tried to understand how something so planned could happen so quietly. I didn't want to think about the moment I discovered the trip had been changed without me. But that moment kept coming back to me at strange times. While I looked at numbers for work, while waiting for the microwave, or even while brushing my teeth before bed. The trip was over for everyone else, but the feeling stayed in my chest like a heavy stone I didn't notice at first. It was strange because I could go about my day, type on my keyboard, answer emails, sit in meetings, and still feel this quiet heaviness pressing on me. I didn't tell anyone at work. I didn't trust myself to explain it without sounding cold or defensive. So instead, I focused on emails, numbers, and meetings where people talked about things that didn't make complete sense. There was comfort in numbers I could count. At least spreadsheets didn't change themselves when I wasn't looking. Numbers didn't hide secrets, and numbers didn't make me feel left out or small. Numbers were predictable, and for a while, that made me feel safe. But every afternoon when I got home, the quiet in my apartment made it impossible to ignore the truth. Something had changed between us, and I was the only one who noticed it. The change was small at first, like a shadow in the corner of a room that you only see out of the corner of your eye. But as the days passed, the shadow grew, and I could feel it sitting in my chest. It was heavy but not loud. It didn't scream or shout. It just existed quietly, and I couldn't make it go away. Finally, I opened the family support workbook again. I hadn't looked at it since I booked the vacation. The total at the bottom had grown much higher than I remembered. Every line told a small story: rent, repairs, fees, last-minute emergencies. Each number was a little mark of something that had happened before, a little reminder of responsibilities that were quietly expected of me. It felt like looking at a secret world I had been part of, but didn't fully understand. Looking at the numbers felt like looking at a promise I hadn't chosen. It felt like a role that was given to me instead of picked by me. I kept scrolling until the total felt less like a number, and more like a mirror of my life. Each entry reflected all the times I had quietly helped, all the times I had said yes when maybe I wanted to say no. It was like staring into a mirror that didn't just show my face, but showed all the invisible work and quiet responsibility I had carried. Late one night, my phone buzzed. It was a message that sounded familiar. It was about the rent again, with the same expectation as always. There was no mention of my trip. No one had noticed I had been gone. Nothing unusual had happened to them. For the first time, I saw the pattern clearly. I wasn't a daughter being included or left out. I wasn't being loved or ignored. I was a resource being used when needed. A calm feeling settled over me, surprising me with how steady it was. I typed a short reply and put the phone down. The quiet afterward felt neat, like a line had finally been drawn that I wasn't allowed to draw before. I looked around my apartment, the mail on the counter, the half-full water on my desk, the soft hum of the air conditioner. Nothing had changed, but everything felt different. A decision had come to me before I even thought about it. I opened my banking app and started canceling automatic payments. One by one, the recurring payments disappeared. Car insurance, rental support, monthly top-ups, utilities. Each cancellation felt like closing a browser tab that had slowed me down for years. The confirmations appeared in soft colors, quiet and final, with no need to explain anything to anyone. I felt a little lighter with each one. Each tap and swipe was a small act of a way to say, I am in charge of my life now. Next, I changed my passwords. I added extra security I should have added long ago. When the app asked me to confirm, something loosened in my chest, a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. But even then, the apartment still felt like it could be entered by anyone who felt they had a right to it. That thought stayed with me until the next morning, when I searched for a locksmith in Austin. A man named Thalen Orris came later that afternoon. He had a toolkit and worked calmly, which I liked. He installed a stronger deadbolt and a small camera above the door. He showed me how to use the app to check the camera, save clips, and adjust alerts. His voice was calm and patient, and I realized I hadn't had that feeling in a long time. Someone explaining something without pressure, without judgment. When he left, the door closed with a solid sound I wasn't used to. The apartment felt different. Not because it had changed, but because I finally felt it was truly mine. The lock, the camera, the new passwords, the canceled payments, none of it erased what happened, but each step made me farther from the pattern that had been there too long. Standing near the window, I realized I wasn't waiting for an apology or explanation. I wasn't waiting for anything. What happened next would happen on its own, but for the first time, I felt ready to face it without looking away. A few quiet mornings passed before anything unusual happened. I went to work, answered emails, and sat in meetings as if nothing had changed. At home, I checked the door camera sometimes, mostly out of habit. It always showed the same hallway, empty and harmless. I thought that meant they hadn't noticed the changes yet. I was wrong. One afternoon, while tidying the kitchen, my phone made a sharper alert sound than usual. The camera app lit up, showing motion at my front door. I tapped it and saw 4 people. My father stood closest, arms crossed with authority. My mother shifted nervously, avoiding the camera. My brother stayed behind, looking at his phone. Next to them was a man in a suit with a leather briefcase. Seeing them together made my chest tighten. Not fear exactly, but a sense that something big was about to happen. I walked slowly to the door, not because I needed to think, but because the moment felt paused, like time itself was holding its breath. I opened the door just enough to see them clearly while keeping my space. The man with the briefcase stepped forward and introduced himself politely. He said he represented my family and wanted to talk about my recent decisions. His words were smooth, but heavy with meaning. My father stayed silent, letting the man speak, while my mother looked at the floor. My brother didn't look at me at all. I listened quietly, letting the words settle. He said people were worried about my sudden financial changes and wanted to make sure everyone's interests were protected, including mine. The meaning was clear. They wanted to force me to keep paying. He brought out a packet of documents and said they were ready to take formal action if needed. I held it without opening it. For a moment, no one spoke. The hallway was quiet except for a TV far away. My father looked at me, waiting for a reaction he could use. My mother's face changed slightly. My brother shifted impatiently. Inside, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. The line they had drawn became visible, and standing on my side of the door, I finally understood how far they would go for money. I handed the packet back calmly. I didn't yell or explain or remind them of years of support. I said the legal matter would need to go through the right channels. The man hesitated, maybe expecting me to argue, but I stepped back and closed the door before he could try anything else. When the latch clicked, I checked the camera. They stayed outside for a few minutes, talking, gestures sharp and frustrated. Then they left, one by one, until the hallway was still again. That evening, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It mentioned possible legal action because I stopped giving support. The words were formal, but the meaning was the same. They felt entitled. I put the letter on my table and sat quietly, knowing they had moved from expecting something to trying to force it. What surprised me most wasn't the threat, but how unsurprising it felt. They had been walking toward this moment long before, and now it was happening just as they planned. The next morning, I woke with a heaviness, not shock. The letter from last night sat on the table, untouched except for a single fold. I wasn't confused. I wasn't even surprised. But I knew I couldn't handle what came next alone. On my way to work, I sent a message to my friend Marisol Quen. She was the only person who could reach me when I stayed silent. We met years ago doing a volunteer project. She had stayed in my life, noticing changes even when I tried to hide them. That afternoon, we met at a small cafe near my office. I explained the visit, the documents, and the letter. I didn't add any details or look for sympathy. I just gave the facts like a report for work. Marisol listened carefully, her expression sharpening with each detail. When I finished, she didn't give empty advice. Instead, she pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. She said quietly, "This is someone who can help you figure out what to do next." I took it slowly. It felt like a lifeline, like someone had finally noticed all the quiet work I had done and understood the weight I had been carrying. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was walking it alone. She told me the name belonged to someone she trusted, a lawyer named Corvin Liss. He was very good at helping families solve problems without getting upset. She said he didn't make promises he couldn't keep, and he didn't let people feel forced or trapped. That was all I needed to hear. I made an appointment with him before leaving the cafe. His office was downtown in a simple, clean building. The hallways were quiet, and the space felt calm. When I arrived, he greeted me politely and professionally. It made me feel calm too. We sat at a long wooden table while I told him everything. From the years I had helped my family with money to the recent time they tried to pressure me legally. Corvin listened carefully, writing short notes as I spoke. When I finished, he leaned back and said the situation wasn't very common, but it wasn't unusual either. Families sometimes tried to make it seem like someone had to give money because they had done it before. He explained that even if their claim was weak, it could become tricky if not handled properly. He told me what we needed: proof of my steady income, proof I could take care of myself, records of the money I had given voluntarily, and any messages showing my family expected money or tried to pressure me. I nodded, already thinking about the folders on my laptop and the emails in my inbox. Corvin also asked me to make an appointment with my doctor to get a note saying I was mentally healthy. Not because anyone thought I wasn't, but to show the court that I was okay and strong in mind. Over the next few days, I collected everything he asked for. I downloaded bank statements showing all the money I had given my family. I copied my work history, pay stubs, and performance reviews. I saved screenshots of messages that showed my family asking in a way that felt like demands. The more I gathered, the more the truth became clear. The doctor's visit was quick. She asked simple questions, looked at my health history, and filled out the form easily. She wished me well, and it felt surprisingly nice. At the end of the week, I brought all the papers to Corvin's office. He looked at everything carefully, organizing it into sections for the court. He said the key was not to show what my family did wrong, but to show what I was not required to do. The strength of our case was that there was no contract, no promise, no law, and no moral rule saying I had to keep giving them money. Before I left, Corvin told me the hearing date. He said we had everything we needed, and the next step was simply to show the truth clearly. I left his office feeling calm in a way I hadn't felt for a long time. Whatever had started at my door was now moving into a place where facts mattered more than feelings. For the first time in a long time, I felt ready to speak with confidence. On the day of the hearing, Austin was quiet and gray, like the whole city was waiting for something to happen. I walked into the courthouse with my folder, feeling steady. The building felt serious, organized, and careful, a place where feelings mattered less than facts. That suited me perfectly. Inside the courtroom, my family sat together at a long table. My dad's posture was stiff, his jaw tight, like he was ready to fight. My mom looked smaller than usual, her hands clasped together tightly. My brother stared at the floor, his face hard to read. Across from them, Corvin quietly arranged his papers, and I sat down next to him. The hearing began. The lawyer for my family spoke first. His voice was polished and confident. He said I had suddenly stopped giving money, that I made random choices, and that I was emotionally unstable after big changes in my life. He tried to make it seem like I was lost and needed the court to protect me and my family. I stayed still and didn't think about responding yet. Then Corvin stood. His voice was calm and steady. He talked about my stable work, my financial independence, my good job reviews, and the fact there was no sign I was unstable. He showed that the money I gave my family was voluntary, not something I was forced to give. There were no promises, no contracts, nothing that made me legally or morally responsible. Everything he said felt like the truth coming back after someone tried to twist it. Finally, it was my turn. I stood up, noticing every small sound. The soft hum of the air, the shuffle of chairs, even the distant footsteps outside the room. When the judge asked why I stopped giving money, I spoke simply. I said the money I gave at first was to help out of generosity and care, but over time, my family expected it as if it was owed to them. I said the change from thankfulness to entitlement was slow, but clear. I didn't talk about vacations, canceled plans, or other private hurts. Those things didn't need to be shared to prove the truth. When I sat back down, I felt calm and sure. Not victorious, just clear. The judge looked at all the papers and made a short decision. There was no reason for my family's request. I didn't have to give money, and the claim was dismissed. The gavel came down with a loud, single sound. Just like that, the room's tension disappeared. People started leaving. I didn't look at my family. I didn't wait for answers or apologies. I walked into the hallway and breathed deeply, feeling the air feel lighter. Outside, the sky had brightened slowly, just enough to notice. In the weeks after, the distance between us became permanent. Letters came about bills my family now had to pay themselves. My brother got a job he had been avoiding. My parents moved to a smaller apartment. None of these things made me happy. They were just what happened when I stopped playing the role they wanted me to. I moved to a new place in South Austin, with bigger windows and softer light. The quiet there felt different, not heavy, not expecting anything, just calm. I spent my evenings walking, cooking, and reading books I had left aside for years. Slowly, without forcing it, I started living a life that was completely mine. I realized the story wasn't really about money, the courtroom, or lists of what I gave. It was about finally understanding that setting boundaries isn't rejecting someone. Boundaries are recognizing what is healthy, fair, and yours to protect. I understood that it's okay to say no sometimes, even to people you love. I understood that my happiness and peace were just as important as anyone else's expectations. And slowly, every step I took in my new life reminded me that I could live fully, freely, and without fear of unfair demands. Every day I felt a little stronger. I felt a little freer. I noticed the sunlight through my wide windows. I noticed the quiet hum of the city in the evenings. I noticed the small joys I had missed while trying to take care of everyone else. And I knew that what I had done, standing up, telling the truth, protecting myself, wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Looking back, the whole experience taught me a lesson I would carry forever. Love and care for yourself are just as important as love and care for others. Saying no doesn't make you unkind. Protecting what is yours doesn't make you cruel. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for everyone, including yourself, is to make sure the truth is clear and respected.